this community together, and that together we can make San Marcos a beautiful, great place. It's already a good place, but I think we can make it a great place. So let me thank you for that introduction, Michelle. That warmed my heart. And Debbie, thank you very much for organizing this and getting out the flyers and the robocalls and all of that fun stuff. I'm just impressed with how events get organized, how they happen. And I'm really pleased with this turnout. So please make sure you eat all the bagels and muffins and all that juice, because we don't want to take anything home. So please enjoy. So Michelle gave you a little bit about my background. I've been practicing law for 30 years, 40 years now actually, since 1983. So I've had a long career, and I've raised all my kids. My last son is now attending Cal State University at Long Beach, commonly called The Beach. And he's enjoying it. He's in his first year, but he called me after his first week and he said, "Dad, you know all those advanced placement classes I took in high school that I had to work my butt off on?" He says, "I'm now a sophomore." So he's starting school as a sophomore, and I'm so proud of him. I said, "Oh, I took out my calculator and figured out how much tuition that saves me." So real proud. My other two kids are adults. My son Jonathan is a history teacher in East County. He teaches at Grossmont High School. And his wife is an English drama teacher in Santee, also in East County. My daughter Lauren is a special ed teacher. She's got a master's in teaching autistic children. And God bless her, she's been doing that now for 15 years. And when she tells me stories about, how many times she got bit today, I get very nervous about it. But she loves her work, and God bless her, she's a saint, and she's doing the hard work. So I've got some really good kids, and I'm really proud of them. I've had a long career. So why am I running for city council? Good question. I'm glad someone asked that. I've had that long career. I've done all sorts of community service work. I spent 12 years on the baseball field with the young kids from 5 years old to 14 years old, coaching, umpiring, and being on the executive board for San Marcos Youth Baseball. Got involved in the community at large because of that. I was president of the San Marcos Rotary last year, and really enjoyed our Rotary. If you haven't gotten involved in the Rotary in San Marcos, please give us a try, because it is a remarkable place of good people that give to the community and do great things. Every other Monday, I go serve Meals on Wheels, so I may have knocked on some of your doors, I'm not sure. But it's a fun job to go around the community and meet people and talk to them and hear their concerns. There's one lady in Palomar West that always gives me a rose every time I deliver her Meals on Wheels, and I'm so looking forward to that every other Monday. I also volunteer time at the North County Food Bank. Once a month, I go in there and I pack up packages for the kids at school that they can take home. We want to make sure our kids, no matter where they are, have enough food. These food packs are good enough to last a weekend, so there's a lot of generosity in how much food we distribute to our kids in the community. So running for city council. As I was a deputy city attorney, I was very involved in city government in San Diego. I actually worked with the city council there while I was working. I headed up, after my stint as a prosecutor and heading up the criminal division for 3 years, I transferred to civil litigation, where I supervised the real property division and was involved in gaining open space all throughout the eastern part of city of San Diego, and accumulating enough open space that we annexed it to the Mission Trails Regional Park, which is 3,500 acre, beautiful state regional park. That contribution actually allowed it to be elevated to a state regional park. And if you're ever in East San Diego, East County, it's a beautiful place to go. The trails are wonderful, and I was very proud to be involved in that project. I then moved up here to North County over 20 years ago and moved here to San Marcos and married my wife, and we blended our family, as Michelle pointed out. She has 3 adult children as well. So we have a lot of fun with our big family, and we've got 5 grandkids now, so ranging from age 10, and they're both in baseball, in case you wanted to know. And the little one is Maple. She's 2 years old. She's the only girl, so she's really the apple of my eye. I really love being around Maple. And the city I got interested in this city when I moved here. I started a business on San Marcos Boulevard. I practice law. I do trusts and estates. My wife's a tax accountant. We have our own business. We run it together. And I got very interested in what was going on in the city at that time. I watched how development was happening. I watched how land use was happening since I was with the city of San Diego. I had a little bit of knowledge about that. And I got concerned. I got very concerned. I was very happy when 3-4 years ago, we started the process of updating the general plan. What is the general plan? It's the key planning document that we decide how our land in San Marcos is going to be used. It's from the general plan come all our zoning laws, all our use laws. So I was happy that we were starting that process because I figured I can have an impact on the general plan update. Well, COVID hit in 2020, and after 2 years, the city manager announced that the budget was underwater. They couldn't fund any further work project or study of the general plan, so they shelved it. So we're now 2 years overdue for a general plan. And frankly, that annoys me because you can't run a city without a general plan. The general plan that's in existence dates back to 2012. San Marcos looked a little different in 2012. We were less populated and less dense than we are now. So the general plan must be updated. That's job one. That's really what motivated me to get involved in city politics and to run for city council. I'm also a big proponent of our climate situation. Has this heat wave in the last month gotten your attention? Has Hurricane Helene on the east side of the country gotten your attention? The storms are getting more severe. The heat waves are getting more severe. We've got to take aggressive action in order to have an impact on climate. And you might say, well, we're just San Marcos, what can we do? Every little increment matters. Every little increment matters. Now, San Marcos does have a climate action plan, and I'm pleased about that, because a lot of communities don't even have a climate action plan. But we do. I don't think it's aggressive enough, in my opinion. It doesn't go far enough. So I want to fight in City Hall to get a more aggressive climate action plan so that we can have an impact in North County on climate issues. And if we combine our effort with Carlsbad and Vista and Oceanside and Escondido, we can have an impact in North County. I serve on the executive board for the Sierra Club of San Diego. I am the vice president in charge of the North County group, who looks at all of the environmental conservation issues for North County and makes decisions and recommends policy to all of the cities in North County. And I want to see a conservation plan that makes good sense for all of North County. We run our land use issues now without regard to conservation. Have any of you noticed all the development in San Marcos? Yes? Raise your hand. I want to make sure you've all noticed it. Okay? All of that development has affected the wildlife corridors in San Marcos. Have you noticed the coyotes kind of don't know where to go anymore? Right? I mean, there's even been, my wife has told me, in Valley Verde, right up the street, where my mother-in-law lived, a bobcat was sighted walking around the street, a bobcat. So we've developed all these properties in the area, Discovery and more's coming, and we've affected the wildlife corridors. We need a multimodal conservation plan, and SANDAG, which is the San Diego Association of Governments, already has that plan in place. Carlsbad, Oceanside, Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido are joint partners in that plan, but it has to be passed in each jurisdiction in order for it to be effective. San Marcos hasn't even tabled. It is tabled. It hasn't even put it on the docket for discussion. I want to make sure that gets on the docket, is discussed, and is part of our general plan update. So those are some of the big issues that I'm concerned about, that I think we need to be focused on in the next coming years. What has happened in the last year is a couple of developments have been approved, so I want to alert you to those. One is where Restaurant Row was. You all know Restaurant Row?
Yes.
All right, Restaurant Row is no longer, right? Sadly. That was, in my opinion, part of the heritage of San Marcos. I would have personally fought and would have liked to see an entertainment center developed on that land, where San Marcos can enjoy theater and arts and all the things that other communities do enjoy. And we do, other than a movie theater, we don't have arts and entertainment in our community. I'm glad the high school's put on some good shows, but we needed a professional entertainment center on that land. But instead, the city council passed this project for Lennar. Lennar is a big national developer. They passed it, and they passed it after the city's planning commission rejected it. The city council appoints a planning commission every 4 years to basically make these recommendations on development. They voted 5-1 to reject the Lennar development, which is 214 townhomes, market rate, no affordable housing, nothing other than market rate. And who knows what the market rate is for a 2-bedroom townhome here in San Marcos?
$2,700.
Rent? Was that the rent number
The rent.
that I heard? Yeah, 2,700 is the right number. That's very, very astute. Purchase townhomes in San Mar, a 2-bedroom, let's call it a 2,000 square foot townhome. Modest, right? $680,000. All right, that's the average. So if you want 3 bedrooms or you want 2,500 square feet, it's more like $800,000. That's for a townhome. Most students graduating from Cal State San Marcos and the senior community, of which in my district, there's eight of you. You're one of 8 of senior parks in my district. So I represent a lot of seniors. I would represent a lot of seniors if elected. They are going to be affected by these property values because nobody can afford to buy them or rent them. And certainly students graduating from Cal State, that's part of my motivation. I'll be a little selfish for a second because I've got a son in college and some young families who would like to live in San Marcos, but they can't. They simply can't. They can't afford it unless they all move into my townhome. And that's not gonna happen. So I have some motivation to make sure and see that San Marcos develops into a community where everybody can afford to live here, thrive, and enjoy our open spaces, our parks and recreation, our trails, and all of the things we do have to offer. The other development that's coming soon is right across from Grand Plaza is a 33-acre parcel. You might have noticed it, or you might have just driven by and not noticed it. But it's been sitting there for a long time. It's an environmentally sensitive land. There's a lot of things on that land that need to be protected. And the city council just passed development of yet another 204 condominium units, market rate, nothing affordable, and nothing for low-income families. So we're going to have more townhomes there, more townhomes here. Guess what's going to happen, folks? Traffic. You think San Marcos Boulevard is bad now? Wait until you see these two developments putting on another 400 total families right around your community, literally circling your community. So that concerns me. The traffic engineering problem concerns me. I've met with the city manager, I've discussed traffic issues. I've asked her, why aren't these traffic lights synchronized? Where's the integration of our lighting system? Why do I have to, at 11 o'clock at night, wait for 5 minutes for a light to turn green? There should be a sensor there that tells me I can go when there's nobody else even around me. So she agrees, and she always, when you ask for these things or bring these things up, she says, B word, what is it? Budget. Our budget is in deficit. It has been in deficit. We are underwater. We have cut services in San Marcos. God forbid we start cutting firefighters or reducing the number of deputy sheriffs that are patrolling. But that's coming next. So on your ballot this year, in addition to the city council race and the water board race that you're going to be introduced to in a minute, there's going to be a proposition, a measure. When it comes to the city level, we don't call them proposition. Propositions are the state level, right? For the city, we call them measures. So Measure Q, Q like Queen, will be on your ballot. Measure Q proposes a 1 cent sales tax, 1 cent sales tax to last for the next 10 years so that we can raise enough revenue in San Marcos to do a couple of things. One, make sure our budget is balanced. Two, make sure no more of our services are cut. And then three, to buy land and build a 5th fire station for the fire department off of Las Posas, right near Grand Plaza, in fact, right near the freeway entrance. There's some land already identified for that purpose. Why do we need a 5th fire station? Good question. All of this development, right? We've put in more population, more people. The firefighters report that their response times for 911 calls has gone way up, and they're not satisfied with response times that are over 5-7 minutes in emergencies. And they need that 5th fire station in order to be responsive to all of us in all of our areas and neighborhoods. So that 5th fire station is indeed needed, and I hope you'll support them by voting yes on Measure Q. I support and endorse Measure Q. In summary, San Marcos is a really beautiful, thriving place, and we can do better. We have a few things that we've got to do right away. I think I have the ability, the wherewithal, and the temperament to see that these things can happen in our community. If I'm elected, I can pledge to you that I will do this at least once or twice a year and meet with you and all of the neighborhoods in District 3. District 3, by the way, runs from Rancho Santa Fe. You're the westernmost neighborhood in my district. If you carry on towards towards the freeway, towards the 78, you then follow the 78 all the way to the Costco, to Nordall. That's District 3, so it goes right through Cal State, right down Barham, where all the other senior parks are, off of La Marais, and into Nordall, where it jars north into the area around Costco. So it's a big district, diverse district, lots of seniors, lots of students in this district that I would be representing, which is good, I like that. But I would have this forum, this town forum, at least once a year, maybe twice a year, if you liked that. Would you like that?
Yes.
Do you think it's important to know who your representatives are and be able to ask questions once in a while?
Yes.
Other than sending emails? I do. I personally treasure this. I think this is the way to govern. So I would do that as your representative for City Council. So thank you for being here. We're going to take some questions in a minute. But before I take questions, I want to introduce my good friend, Jen Krshbaum, who is running for Vallcitos Water Board. And I asked her to come because I want you to know it's important to elect people who will not only represent your best interests, but that who will work together to make sure things happen in our community. Your water board representative and your city council representative and even your school board representative can all work together to make things happen in San Marcos rather than these separate little universes in government. Government needs to be holistic, and it can be. If you make it that way, you develop relationships and you have good communication. Jen Kerschbaum is somebody I know I could work with, and I look forward to working with her. So let me introduce Jen. She will give some comments to you about her candidacy for water board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that introduction, and such a great speech about our, what our city is now and what it can be. I really appreciate Alan. I really appreciate his advocacy for his advocating for our residents and for our city. And Alan and I do work together. We're friends, and I appreciate his comments about if we're both elected, then we will work together to best serve you. So a little bit about me. I am a civil engineer by training. I have over 15 years of experience specifically in water resource design and development. So that's one of the reasons I was really interested in this position. I've been very active in the community the last 10 years. So I have 3 children. My oldest is 16 and my youngest is 10. We moved here to San Marcos 12 years ago. So I had 2 small children, the 2 boys. The girl wasn't born yet. But when we moved here, I was just struck by how wonderful of a community that we have. I don't live right here, but I live close by. I live off of Rancho Santa Fe in San Alejo. And after kind of moving around a little bit, my husband and I were looking for a community that we could really raise our children. And when we found it here in San Marcos, I just was so happy to be here and so thankful that we had a place that we could really cherish long-term and build a community, that I decided when my children were young that I was gonna do what I could to give back to the community and make it better. So I spent the next 10 years doing just that. I served as PTO president for several years. Prior to that, I was PTO treasurer, which PTO president, by the way, is a full-time job, but it's not paid. But it was important to me that my children have the best school, that they have the best community. One job of a PTO president is really just building community events so families can connect. So I pride myself on really giving back to the community and building community. The other thing that I'm really passionate about is climate issues, and so Alan and I share that passion as well. So about 10 years ago, I look back in time as that was when we really started seeing real climate effects. Before that, it was always just kind of like, it's coming, global warming is coming. I remember studying about it in college. I was a civil and environmental engineering major at UCLA, and it always seemed like this far off thing, right? Like it's way in the future. And in 2014, we had a terrible fire where we had to evacuate our neighborhoods. It's getting hotter every year. So I decided at that time too that in addition to serving my community, I wanted to do what I could to fight climate change. So I investigated into our climate action plan, which at the time was in development, learned more about it. I was appointed to the climate action plan working group in 2020, City of San Marcos. So I have been working on that climate action plan as a citizen for the last 5 years. I was also appointed to the Clean Energy Alliance Community Advisory Committee, which I don't know if you know, Clean Energy Alliance is our new energy provider. SDG&E is our old energy provider. That's an investor-owned utility. Now we have choice in where we purchase our energy, and so I serve on that board as well. But I am running because I am really invested in all of us. I'm invested in our community. I want to make sure that your interests are represented in the water board, and not special interests, not developers. And that's where Alan and I really share a vision here, because we need to have people in government that are invested in the community and looking out for you. So that is really why I'm motivated to run. And again, I have technical, sorry about that, microphone. Is it, sounds like right here, okay. I'm new to this public speaking, by the way. I'm a first-time candidate, so there's little like details about microphones and stuff I'm just learning. Anyway, but I have the technical background to really make decisions about your water. So you deserve somebody like me. You deserve somebody like Alan representing you that's invested in your best interest. I have the technical background to make decisions about water. I hope to get elected so that I can represent you, and I feel the same as Alan. It's so important to be connecting with our constituents. I have really enjoyed this part of the campaign. I love meeting people at their doors, meeting people at events like this, because I always hear different questions and different concerns that I really hadn't thought about. Ken and I just had a great conversation. We were talking about water quality, and he had a great point. Well, Vallcitos is testing water at the source, but what about when it gets to all these pipes? What if there's a pipe that's damaged? We should be doing more testing. So I appreciate these comments. I will bring your concerns, your questions into my decision making as a member of the board. And then really quick, so my priorities if I'm elected is really clean water, safe water, affordable water, and long-term sustainability of our water. And so I was talking to a table over here about my ideas about groundwater sustainability here in San Marcos. So we get all of our water is imported. We don't use any rainfall. We don't have any of our own water sources here in San Marcos. So, and we also happen to have a huge aquifer right under our feet with a lot of water. So if I'm elected, one of my priorities is to really look into utilizing the groundwater that we have. And then you might ask, well, if we pump all the groundwater out, isn't that a problem? Yes, it's definitely a problem, which is why I will advocate for a groundwater sustainability plan here in San Marcos. The state of California has invested billions in the last couple budget years into water resiliency projects. Groundwater sustainability plans is one of those, is one item of water resiliency projects. So we have the opportunity here in San Marcos to utilize money from the state to capture our groundwater, to use our groundwater, and then also to recharge our groundwater. So if you have specific questions too about how do we recharge groundwater, I can talk in the small groups, but the state of California, again, is investing a lot of money in what's called stormwater capture projects. So we're trying to not only capture the stormwater, but then also infiltrate the groundwater so that we have a sustainable source of water here in San Marcos. So far, groundwater has sort of been brushed aside at the district because it's heavy in minerals, so there would be a treatment process. It's also expensive to pump. But again, we have the opportunity to collaborate with the state, and we need people that are elected like myself that know where to look, that know how to collaborate, that are really passionate about these things, so that we can make that happen. So those are kind of my priorities, and I support Measure Q as well. So Alan and I hope to have your support in the ballot, and you should get it next week. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Your ballots are on the way. They'll be in your box after the 6th, so probably Monday, Tuesday. They come in batches, so you may not see it until maybe the 10th or 13th. It just depends on when the registrar mails it, but you'll see it in the next 10 days, let's say, for sure. And when you get your ballot, open it up. You should already have your voting book. I think those were mailed a week or so ago. So you can study up on all the propositions. You can look at the measures we're talking about. You can look at all the candidates. You probably have heard all you need to hear about presidential politics. So our focus here today is on local stuff because that's really, in my opinion, what really affects your life directly. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. My business card in the form of this placard is on your desk. Please don't leave them here. Take them with you because I would love it if you shared it and Jen's with your neighbors who didn't make it here today. I'm glad that Ken volunteered to record this, so it will be available to the others who missed it. So take these with you. If you don't need it right now, give it to your neighbor so they know. Also, I'll just mention really quickly the proverbial envelope. And running an election, running a campaign is not cheap. Whether you're running for city council, water board, school board, or anything else. You've got to buy all these signs and buy all this stuff and hire staff and do things, right? So if any of you can't afford a contribution, nothing is too small, you can take the envelope with you and deposit a check or whatever and just mail it. My address is already on there. I'll get it over at my office on San Marcos Boulevard, and I'll be very grateful. Thank you.
You can also donate on the website.
Oh, okay. Ashcon is reminding me that my website, and Jen's got a website too, on her card. You can go on the website and make a contribution that way. The old-fashioned way is to put a check in the envelope, right? That's the way I remember. But the new-fashioned way is to go online and do it with your credit card, or debit card. So we want to open up to questions, and I've asked Jen to stay because some questions she can answer, some I can answer. But we want to make sure we can answer all your questions, okay? So are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. All right, who's got a question? We'll start with Michelle.
This is for Jen. I was just wondering if we could collaborate with Carlsbad in a desalination plant. I know it's super expensive, but I was wondering if we could get like economies of scale if we went in with other communities, and then we wouldn't have to worry about where the water's coming from, right?
So great question about the Carlsbad desalination plant. So there is, most everybody knows, there already is a desalination plant in operation right now. It's been working for the last 10 years. And we actually do buy a large portion of our water from the desalination plant right now. So we get about 30% of our water from the desal plant. And it is privately owned. So we pay for that water. Carlsbad does pay for some water too. One of the reasons that we don't have desalination plants at a public level is it is a huge investment. So there's been a lot of interest in investing in these types of facilities. Now, the problem with the desal is wonderful for drought situations because now we always have a source of water. We have a contract with the Carlsbad desalination plant to buy a minimum amount per year. It's about 5% of our total supply. We end up buying more from them. So like I said, we get about 30% of our water from the Carlsbad desal plant. But I would like to see that number go down. And the reason for that is because it's very expensive. So the process of desalinating water, reverse osmosis, uses a lot of energy, which is bad for our greenhouse gas emissions. And it's also very expensive. So that's why I'm really advocating for more local water, tapping into our groundwater long term. But again, the desal plant is great. I'm really glad that we have it there for a drought situation because we really don't ever have to worry about water restrictions here. So thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Over here, Ashton. We'll get to you next. By the way, before the question, I got a comment that your remodeling here is remarkable. It looks really good. Your new facility here is marvelous, and I saw you have all new kitchen equipment, and congratulations. It looks great. Question?
It's a lengthy question, so sorry. I won't take up too much time. First of all, thank you guys both for coming on a Saturday. Regarding Measure Q, you know, if we went up a percentage, we would be hovering around almost 9% on our sales tax. So just something to think about. The rapid development with these folks that are building these homes. My understanding is the reason we're building townhomes is because single-family homes have pretty much gotten out of the price range for most folks. So with that being said, most of the builders across the county in San Diego and all of Southern California pay for the infrastructure when they develop these condos, homes, townhomes, instead of directly putting that burden on all of the folks that live in San Marcos. It's something that we all know when they build and develop, they'll pass on a little bit of that to the new homeowner, and that usually can fall off at a certain time. If it's a large development like a master plan community, they could even put a metal roofs in, and that would fall off in 15 years. So have you guys thought about maybe looking at that, you know, forward thinking versus just adding on more taxation to all the population? That's my question.
Fantastic question, too, and detailed. Measure Q will have a 10-year lifespan, first of all, if it's passed. It's only going to be around for 10 years. The current sales tax rate is 7.75% for our area. Most communities around us already have 8.75. So in one sense, we're just catching up. I will make a couple of geeky comments about how we receive revenue in San Marcos. San Marcos became a city shortly before Prop 13, okay? Prop 13 limited the percentage of property tax that San Marcos can derive. We only get 6.5% of property tax. Coronado, for example, gets 33% of the property tax collected that goes back to the city of Coronado. So you can see what a you can see the discrepancy of revenue from city to city. So the 1%, the 1 cent is intended, but the 1 cent is intended to make up some of the difference in the amount of property tax revenue the city of San Marcos is able to get. Your point is well taken, though. Second part of your question is on development. Yes, developers are supposed to build the infrastructure around their new development, and our people at the city of San Marcos, when they're negotiating these packages with developers, do require that. And unfortunately, it's never enough, right? They might do some street repairs, they'll do some sewer hookups, they'll do a few things, but they're not going to build a library, and they're not going to build a fire station. So, and those are the things that we need that are impacted from higher development. And the 1 cent sales tax here will make up some of that difference for the fire station, because that's an immediate need that we have and that we've got to take care of, in my opinion. As far as how developers get approval process, that's also an important component of your question. When they get approval, we have an ordinance in San Marcos called the inclusionary ordinance. The inclusionary ordinance is a good piece of legislation. Again, I don't think it goes far enough, but it requires that developers set aside at least 15% of their living area that they're developing for lower income families, either low or extremely low income families. It's a requirement that comes down through state law that is part of our inclusionary ordinance. Here's the rub. The developer, in that ordinance, there's something called an in lieu fee. In lieu, I-N-L-I-E-U, means instead of. Yeah, you're right. Here's what happens. Developers say, well, we'll just pay this in lieu fee so we don't have to provide affordable housing to low-income families or extremely low-income families like the ordinance requires. So they put aside some money. You'll hear the city council talk about this wonderful in lieu fee fund so they can develop affordable housing, but it never gets developed, and it never gets developed in such a way that it is affordable. So either the in lieu fee needs to go and require developers to build affordable housing, or we need to make the in lieu fee higher so that developers are motivated to actually provide affordable housing. So those are the two strategies I would use. So the overarching point that you're making is nobody likes new taxes. I don't like new taxes. I will point out that Measure Q, if it passes, a couple things, you don't get that one extra 1 cent. It's a district tax, it's not the overall sales tax. That's not part of essential things like groceries, feminine products, things that you would need on a day-to-day basis. It's intended to tax on things like big purchases like refrigerators at Best Buy or TVs or things like that. And realize that people that come into our city, go to Best Buy and buy a refrigerator, are going to pay that 1 cent. So it's not going to just be our burden. It's going to be anybody that comes in here. And everywhere else around us, it's already at 8.75. So there's no reason not to come to San Marcos and go to Best Buy and buy a refrigerator and pay that extra penny that will come to San Marcos. So the point's well taken, 10-year limitation on it. And then one more point about Measure Q, it will have a Citizens Advisory Board, appointed position by all of you who wish to serve on that board to make sure the city is allocating the revenue for its intended purpose. You will review that, and you will report to the citizens of San Marcos on an annual basis. Make sure that those monies are collected, how much was collected, and how was it allocated. So there is an accountability portion of that measure. And Jen, did you have any comments about Measure Q? Okay, yes. Hold on, let's get the mic.
Okay, I've only been in San Marcos for 4 years now. So this is what's happened in San Marcos new to me. You mentioned that San Marcos is in deficit and has been for a long time. Why? Why are we running in a deficit?
Wow, that's the loaded question. The question was, I know it went in and out there the first thing. We've got a deficit, we've had it for at least 5 years. Why? And that's the good, fair question. It totally is a revenue issue. Some budgets are overspending and you can do some cutting. This budget, there is no overspending, I can promise you. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb. I studied it with the city manager. We went through each department, looked at the numbers. I wanted to really understand our budget and how things get approved. We don't have she is correct when she reports that there's nothing else to cut. And if we start cutting more services in San Marcos, we're going to lose firefighters, sheriffs, and people that we really rely on as a community. And we don't want to go to that place. The good news I'll report to you is that the city, you don't say. Okay, everybody up and stretch. Let's go. We're going to do some aerobics. Will that go off? Is that someone's phone ringing? Thank you. All right, I lost my train of thought. Deficit. Why don't we have money?
Who spent it?
The revenue that we've been able to collect has not exceeded the expenses for at least the last 5 years. I talked a little bit about why, and most of it is because of our low revenue collection through property taxes. Carlsbad and Vista have upwards of 12 to 15% that they collect from property taxes. We're at 6.6. It's just simply a revenue issue. However, this is what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted. We have a reserve. The city of San Marcos has been smart to also be a landlord in the community. They own the shopping center at Creekside. The city owns the shopping center at Grand Plaza, so they act as the landlord. And those projects have been revenue positive. So we've been able to avoid further revenue collection because of this extra investment that we have in property and real estate in the city. So kudos to people that 20 years ago made these decisions to buy the land and develop it and be a landlord. So that has helped, and that's the reason why we didn't have to raise more revenue until now when it's become essential. During COVID, the other aspect of your question is, during COVID, the city was receiving monies from the federal government and from the state of California to supplement the budget, because not only for San Marcos, but for all the municipalities in the county. Everybody was in a deficit during COVID. So some of it is post-COVID recovery as well, as to why we remain in deficit. But in my opinion, that's a minor piece. The biggest piece is the lack of collected revenues, and that's the reason for the 1 cent. Yes, Kevin?
I used to work for a man that used to say, think different. And what about, instead of collecting more revenue, what about just making it more efficient? Making the whole processes through government more efficient. Typically, they're only about 50% efficiency, is last time I've heard. There's a big, huge difference in that. What about doing something a little different?
And that is another great question, and that has happened, Kevin. If you attend some of the workshops in the community over the last 5 years, that has been the subject. Where is the fat in the city that we can cut? And that has happened. We've cut the programs and the things that we can sort of do without, that people won't miss, but we've cut to the point where there is no further efficiency cutting to do. Unless you don't care about your streets being repaired and you don't care about police and firefighters. That's where we're at. You know, we're going to get to a point where if the city keeps running in deficit, it's going to run out of its reserve, which it's been living on. We've been dipping into that reserve every year. And we're going to end up in a situation where we're bankrupt. You know, we have to start over again. Nobody wants to see that, right? So your question is well taken, and I can tell you based on my study and participation in the budget process over the last 5 years, that efficiency argument has been touted, it's been implemented, and the city has reached the point where there is no more.
You need an efficiency expert. I don't see that in any of the commissions.
Excellent. Kevin, I invite you to be at the next budget workshop and offer your insight, your input, and help people understand what needs to happen. Because I know a couple of things about budgets and budgetary process, and I've seen this one in effect now for the last 5 years personally, being involved in the process. And it is a true statement. This is not just me just coming out with it. We have reached the bottom rung. There is nothing else to cut. Yes, sir.
Is there a plan, what is the projection to get out of this deficit? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 100 years? If it's just putting this Band-Aid on, then something needs to be taken care of, resolved.
If this 1 cent sales tax is passed, it is projected to raise $20 million in the first fiscal year. That will balance the budget. That will balance the budget. It probably will be at least $20 million for years 2 through 10, which will also balance the budget. In fact, the budget will be in surplus so that we can do special projects like the fire station. So this 1 cent sales tax is the correction that the budget needs in order to sustain the services we have and to have enough surplus to do the projects that we need to do. So for the next 10 years, nothing else will need to happen. Any other questions? How about back there? Come on, in the cheap seats. Yes, Michelle's got another question. Debbie, sorry. There's Michelle.
I'm just curious, Jennifer brought up CEA, and we were all told to go with CEA, that they were much lower than San Diego Gas and Electric, and in fact, they're a penny to 2 pennies more. Is there anything that can be done about that?
So, yes, that is true. It is slightly more, and one of the reasons that we're paying a little bit more for our energy at Clean Energy Alliance is because SDG&E charges an exit fee, which can be anywhere between 5 years and 30 years. It's really hard to understand these exit fees. I've spent some time trying to understand where these come from. I do not understand how that was even allowed, because as a consumer, for example, if I'm buying cable, nobody uses cable anymore, but if I was using a cable provider for a certain number of years and I decide to stop using them and I switch to somebody else, you just switch, right? But somehow SDG&E was able to get away with this exit fee that they charge. And the way it's been explained to me is that since they buy their energy for these years-long contracts, 20 years, 30 years, that they pass that on to the consumer somehow. So what you're seeing is that additional fee is really the exit fees. So
When we switched over to CEA at the time, we were told there was no exit fee from SDG&E that we had to pay, because there was just a short amount of time that if we went with CEA, it was a short window. But if we went with CEA, the overall price was going to be lower.
Well,
and
yeah,
it's
and
not. SDG&E is paying more. They're charging more.
I think what SCEA said in the beginning was that it was going to be, they wanted the rates to be the same, and their goal is always to make the rates the same. And you're correct, the consumers did not have to pay it, never had to pay an exit fee, but the way that contracts are negotiated for the energy is they're charging the municipalities these exit fees. So, and it gets tacked on top of the energy that we buy for our community. So it's a very unfortunate situation, and I really don't understand how we got into that. I mean, the good news is that it is a small percentage. It's a very small amount, so it's a similar cost. And the thing that I like about Clean Energy Alliance compared to SDG&E is that it's a public agency, right? So it's elected officials that sit on the board. There's citizens that are on the community advisory committee. So the way that Clean Energy Alliance works, it's a 7-city agency. So it's San Marcos, Carlsbad, Vista, Oceanside, Escondido, missing one. So there's a city council member from each of those 7 city agencies that sits on the board. So they meet every month. And then when the agency starts having additional revenue, it gets invested back into the community. So it's a non-for-profit agency, whereas SDG&E has investors. It's an investor-owned utility, so the profits go back to the investors. So that's the thing that I like about Clean Energy Alliance is, number one, we have choice on where to purchase our energy. We give our customers more choice on if they want more renewable energy. And the idea is that we're investing back into the community, whether it be for lower rates for lower income families. Also, it could be investing in clean energy projects in our region. So those are the types of projects that we're investing back. And yes, there is that additional 1 cent. So, if that's really important to you, then, there is always the option to go back to SDG&E, but it's a terrible, terrible scam. I don't know how we even got into this, and I started researching it, and it's very convoluted and very confusing, and it seems like there was some really bad decisions made at a higher level, like the legislation back when this bill was passed for all the community energy. So that's not the best answer, but that's what I have. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Any other questions? There's no dumb questions, remember that. That being said, thank you for being here. I am so happy that you all came. I hope you will talk to your neighbors about meeting Alan Geraci and Jennifer Kerschbaum. I don't know what the regulations are, but we brought some yard signs. If any of you would like a yard sign to put in your front area, it's very helpful because it tells the community that you have a support, that you support one of or both of us, and we appreciate that. I have more in my car if that's not enough. And if you do have more questions, my information again is on that card, as is Jennifer's on hers. So please reach out anytime, any place, and let us know. Election is 31 days away. Election day is 31 days away. The election process is over the next month. So get your ballots, make your plan, execute it, and get it back in the mail and back to the registrar. No stamp required, remember that. So thank you all again for being here, and I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and take care.